I'm Councillor Liz Grundy. I'm a local councillor for the Old Town constituency in the Metropolitan Borough of Barnsley. Never been involved in politics or particularly interested in politics before until our local council decided to close the library, and I got very involved in the campaign, got extremely angry about it, and was therefore attending lots of meetings in the town hall, in the library and elsewhere, and happened to say on one occasion, they're all useless, I could do a better job, at which point someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, well, put your money where your mouth is and do it. So after lengthy discussion with my husband, we decided we'd give it a go and run for election. The next step is, obviously there's got to be a local election, and there's lots of paperwork, deadlines. There's a set time in which you can get your paperwork in. You have to have 10 people that live within the ward that recommend you, that are prepared to sign to say that they are prepared to back you to be a local councillor. My husband was my agent, and we had lots of paperwork to fill in, and then after that we started the process of writing out a manifesto, getting posters, leaflets, etc, etc.
You said your husband was an agent. What does that mean?
The agent deals with all the paperwork, all the finances, so that the candidate can just focus on getting out there, meeting as many people as possible, and putting themselves forward to be the best candidate for the election. As very much an independent councillor in a town which is, and has been for as long as I can remember, a very strong Labour council. As an independent member, I was just standing for the people and not for the politics, so that the people of Old Town have got some voice within the town hall and within decisions that are being made within Barnsley. Right, so the campaign trail was extremely exhausting. First of all, once we'd got all the paperwork back from the printers, we had manifestos, flyers, you name it, we had it, and they just arrive in big boxes. So to make that manageable, we needed to separate them into piles of 100, which took days and days to do. Put bands round them all, and then we set about sorting out which would be the best way to get across the ward, because it is a very elongated ward with very mixed communities in it. So we started by getting a big map of the ward and breaking it down into more manageable chunks to actually go out and leaflet and door knock. Most people were very supportive actually. They said it was it was nice to have a female knocking on the door. It was nice to have anybody at all knocking on the door, because Labour have become so complacent in Barnsley that they just expect to get in every time. Some people said they'd never had a politician knock on the door before, but they listened to what I had to say, and fortunately for me they backed me, and hence going on to be elected. But it was a very long drawn out process. 8,000 homes in Barnsley, so 8,000 letterboxes to put paperwork through, and to knock on as many doors as possible so that people could actually see me and who I was. It was all quite surreal. It was bizarre. You felt as if you were on a set for a television programme, and it was all it becomes quite hostile really, in that the Labour councillors just speak to Labour councillors and totally ignore anybody from any other parties, and it was very much a case of us and them. We actually attended the verification, which is when the polling stations close at 10 o'clock. All the boxes are then taken into a central point, which for us is at the Metrodome, and then they ratify them to make sure that the figures that have been given to them by the person in charge of each polling station tally with the figures that are on the box. So that's just a case of making sure that there's no fiddling going on really. So but that's a long process. So we were there probably until about 2 in the morning, I think. And then the actual count took place the following morning, which was the Friday morning, when they'd actually got on with counting the votes. And it was just terrifying, because I didn't expect for 1 minute to get in, but once you're involved in that, you want to win. I suppose it's a bit like the Olympics really. You don't think you stand a cat in hell's chance, but you'd like to win anyway. The elation to start with, and the look on the faces of the opposition was just, well, I'll just never forget that, because they were just blown away. And since then, I mean, I've been on 2.5 years now, and I was the only person to take a Labour seat, and nobody else has taken one since. So yeah, it came as quite a shock to them, I think. Immediately, very, very busy. You receive a call from the town hall giving you a time and day to go in to be sworn in, which is just a case of going in and signing to say that you accept the role of councillor, and it's all done very officially with the chief executive. Paperwork to be signed yet again, and then from then on it's a case of training, briefings, introductions to this, introductions to that. For the first 6 months it was more or less hell on wheels. It was just chaotic really.
And what was the training that they gave you? Was it procedures for like how the things operate, I'm guessing?
Yes, yeah. All the different departments, all the different procedures, some of it which goes straight over the top of your head, lots of paperwork to read, an actual manual. And then the flip side of that, of course, is that the public that have voted for you then want to speak to you about their problems. So you were juggling being in the town hall, attending meetings and attending briefings, and you know, trying to fit everything in so that you weren't disappointing anybody, and making sure that you were getting out to see people and sort their problems out. So it's very much a very, very steep learning curve. As an independent councillor, it's very, very difficult because we're very much in the minority. There's 4 independent councillors and 4 Conservative councillors. So we don't have a great deal of say within the town hall. But what we can do is make a difference out in the community. And I just try to make sure that the people that I represent have got a voice. And that's an ongoing struggle because there's 2 Labour councillors and there's me. So it's a case of they feel that they've got the majority, so it's constantly standing up and saying, no, stop, hang on a minute, this is not how it's going to be. And yeah, it can be very, very testing, very testing. I sit on the Ward Alliance, which is all councillors sit on the Ward Alliance. It's made up of people from throughout our constituency, representatives excuse me, representatives of the community. And basically we try to facilitate groups getting funding for things that they want to do within the community. I've been involved with the schools. I'm involved with a friends group for the park, Friends of Wilthorpe Park. Lots of trying to get bids in for different groups, and generally just supporting people in what they want to do. Lots of minor things like my bins not being emptied, dog fouling and all that, and littering and fly tipping, and that's just general everyday bread and butter stuff really. I think it is important because it's the only way that the people in the community get to have any say whatsoever. It's also very difficult in a town where there's been a Labour majority for years and years and years. I think it would have been a much more comfortable ride and a much more satisfying ride if we'd have had, like I believe Sheffield is, more of an equal balance. Generally speaking, we get on and we do what we have to do, but there have been some very, very difficult situations.
Do you think that it's a political agenda, or? I think
it's politics within the politics. Yeah. So every day is different. You never know what's coming in. You never know what phone calls you're going to get. Some days it's very quiet. Some days it's it's non-stop. My first thing that I would do is check my emails, answer any emails that need answering, update my calendar because there's constantly training and briefings coming in that we need to do. I sit on the planning board, so there's all that. So it's just slotting things into your diary, and what's what's mandatory, and what things you need to be at and what things you don't need to be at. Sometimes you have to make a decision. You can go from one meeting to another and be in meetings all day some days, and other days it's quiet. So it's very mixed really. One or two issues that have come up locally that are causing problems, and the general fly tipping, dog fouling situation, enforcement, parking. So that's the constant really. There's more and more cuts taking place, so there's less and less staff to do the work that needs doing. In Old Town we've, along with other areas in the north area, we've employed enforcement officers, but of course they can't be everywhere at once. So they will deal with things like parking and fly tipping and dog fouling, littering. But again, there's only so many of them, and they can't be all over the place at once. School holidays, particularly the long summer break, we have problems in parks and things like that. A recent one was some mules setting fire to the football pitch. They'd gathered up all the dry grass in the park and were trying to set fire to it. Fortunately, someone was there and stopped them. But just little things like that. It's getting the message over to people that there's no longer the money and the staff to do these things, and that we need volunteers from the community to step up a little bit, and instead of phoning us and saying, somebody's been littering my street, perhaps getting together a few of them and going out and tidying it up themselves. We do have some very strong groups within Old Town, some very positive groups, but we could do with more. There's Friends of Wilthorpe Park who meet. They have a gardening club on a Saturday morning. They got involved because the council were wanting to grass over the two large flower beds, and we kind of got together and said, well, we don't want you to do that, we'll maintain that. So all the council do now in the park is cut the grass, and we've recently, as a friends group, won a wren bid for £45,000 to have some new play equipment put in the park. We have a gardening club on a Saturday morning, and we keep it tidy and do the best that we can. We say it's an hour from 10 till 11, but more often than not we're still there at 12, sometimes even longer. There's a residents group in Pogmoor, there's a Tara group in Honeywell, and one or two other just little groups that that get together when they can to keep their area looking nice and tidy. I felt that we should have stayed in Europe, voted to stay in Europe, and yet as a local council I'm yet to see any impact. I think everything's still in a state of flux really, and I'm talking from from the leaders of the country. I don't think they've come to terms with what's happening yet. I think the country's still quite unbalanced about it all and unsure about the way forward. Yeah, I think it's really, really important that young people are getting involved, and we've actually got a youth council at Barnsley, and they are very a proactive youth council, but I just think it's essential. I think it's essential for the borough that we get more people interested in politics and try and get away from the Labour mentality really. Yeah, so I'm Councillor Liz Grundy, was elected 2 years ago, last May. Term of office comes up in May 2018, and at the moment I'm like that as to whether I'll stand again.